So welcome everybody. I've got my great friend Sophie with me today, and I'm going to let her introduce herself in a minute and just say a little bit about what she does. I'm not quite sure whether this is going to be part of the Questions on My Mind series or whether it's just a riff, a conversation that we have. It might be, because I think it ties in all the different things I've been talking about with some of the previous guests like Natalie and Ahimsa, the astrologist, and the card reader and things. I think it pulls on some of the spirituality type stuff. So hopefully it's going to be a really enriching conversation and enlightening conversation as well. So welcome, Sophie.
Thanks, Jacqui.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing at the moment.
Okay, this is always my least favorite part of any interview, because it's like
you can keep it really short and then we'll go into the juicy
that's my thing.
We'll circle back round at the end if you want.
So I've been in the kind of therapy coaching world for about 18 years now, so a long time. I'm long in the tooth. My whole focus is really on mindset and manifestation. I know we were just talking before we started properly recording that I'm really logical and also really spiritual. So I originally trained as a solution-focused hypnotherapist and psychotherapist, and I've also studied positive psychology and loads of spiritual stuff. So I bring all this to play in my work, as I don't do so much one-to-one coaching now, but I still do a little bit. I teach, I run a lot of masterclasses, I create meditations, but everything I do, and as you know, I'm writing a book at the moment called Living in Faith, it's all under this umbrella of mindset, manifestation, and drawing on the deeper tenets of sort of spirituality, but also the more logical neuroscience aspect of things. So that's kind of where I'm at today.
And what drew me in to ask for the conversation, like we've known each other for years, but we've kind of known each other but not known each other, just on the spiritual circuit kind of thing. But I will call you a friend because we've met a number of times, and we're on the same sort of wavelength. But what drew me to kind of want to have this conversation was, I think you just did a masterclass called Manifesting Miracles.
My course, that's my course that's upcoming, actually, Manifesting Miracles.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, maybe you saw me mention that.
Yeah, and then there was and then you're writing this book called Living in Faith, and there's that ties in so much with so many of the things that I've been thinking about lately and doing some of my reels on and all that kind of stuff. So that what intrigued me most was that title, Manifesting Miracles, because miracles has this feel about it of things that would usually be unattainable. But I suppose I'm trying to get where's the balance between wanting to manifest something that's impossible versus manifesting miracles. What's the context around miracles?
I think that a lot of what I'm talking about actually in my book is that we live in this physical world. Of course, you know, I'm sat on a chair. I assume you're sat on a chair and not just levitating, Jacqui, but you know, you might be.
Not today.
We've got our laptops, you know, and so on and so forth. There's this physical, knock on wood, reality world that we live in.
Yeah.
And our minds can understand this, right? You know, I'm held up by a chair because it's so seeming solid, although we all, I think, know that
there's question marks over that.
Nothing is really solid. When you look at it under a powerful enough microscope, you see it's all just moving particles or atoms, whatever it might be. And so I feel like when I was born, I just had this extra powerful knowing that there's more to life than meets the eye. There's more to life than the mind can comprehend, because I don't know about you, but if I try and think about the fact that, you know, the universe is always expanding and there's no end to space, it just makes my mind want to explode, implode, set on fire, whatever.
Yeah.
But melt. And even I was talking with my daughter recently about the fact that her and all her friends, their periods are in sync, and I'm in sync with her. We're all in sync. We don't know how that happens.
That happened. Yeah.
Like, how, that's crazy. But there are lots of examples of things like this that our minds just can't compute. And I think it's David Hawkins in one of his books gives this like different levels of consciousness, and I forget the ins and outs, but at some level it's like, right, the mind can only take you this far. Okay. And it's funny, I was watching, I don't know if you know this comedian, she's new on my radar, but she's called Michelle Wolf, and I think she did one or two of the correspondence dinners in the States and really offended Trump. But anyway,
I don't know her, but yeah.
No, she's funny, but I like her. And I was just watching a bit of her this morning. For anyone watching this, it is a Sunday, by the way, so I wasn't just like lounging around on a Tuesday, which wouldn't be a bad thing anyway. But she talks about miracles in this clip, and she was saying people call, you know, childbirth a miracle. She's like, that's not a miracle. A miracle is like you go to bed with 1 foot and you wake up with 2. And I actually recorded this clip to post on my Instagram stories because I thought it's funny, and it's relevant to what I'm talking about in terms of manifesting miracles. So I think that in terms of that word miracle, I would use it really loosely. So I've had, for example, one girl who I did a bit of one-to-one work. She's in my membership. She did Manifesting Miracles once, maybe twice, because quite a lot of people have done it more than once, and I forget. And she had a medical issue that basically made it pretty much impossible for her to get pregnant. And I forget all the ins and outs.
Yeah.
But pardon the pun, but long story short, she ended up having a baby, and it's one of my most favorite things I've ever got through from a client. She just sent me a photograph of her little baby boy, and underneath #manifested, and I'm just getting goosebumps as I'm thinking about it now. So it's things like that. It's also like one girl I work with, she works at a local estate agent. She's been there 9 years. She's never had even a sniff of a bonus in that time. And after doing Manifesting Miracles, she got £1,000 bonus. Now, you can call that a miracle, or you can call it coincidence. The thing that I've learned, let me just try and tell this story, but without it being too long. Not long after I'd moved into my last home and I'd separated from my ex-husband, I am a seeker. I don't think you'll find anyone on the planet who has been more in yearning to know the love of the divine than me. It's just yeah. So you know how it goes, Jacqui, like seeker through to my core. And I was particularly in this phase of like, you know, just show up for me. And 3 things happened. One was my ex-husband used to put bottles of beer in the freezer, you know, to cool down quickly. And I was always like, just don't do it because you'll forget about it. It will burst. It's just a no-no for me. I just would never do that thing. And I was in this house on my own, no ex-husband, hallelujah. And I went to the freezer one day and there was a bottle of Budweiser in there. And I was just like, you know, it's only me and my 2 children that live here. And I just thought, okay, well, I must have done it, because this is what the mind does. It likes to, you know, just explain things away, and it will explain away the most miraculous, the most magical. I always think of that Roald Dahl quote, something like, those who don't believe in magic will never find it. It's not that, it's more eloquent than that. Anyway, that happened. And then something appeared on my calendar on my phone that I can't even say because it's too embarrassing and too rude, a calendar entry. And I was like, I was kind of seeing this guy at the time, and I said to him, did you put this in my calendar as a joke? And he was like, well, no, how would I get in your phone? And then I was like, could my ex-husband access it? He couldn't. And it was like, that's weird. I would never put that thing in there because it's really inappropriate. And I was like, okay. And then the third thing happened. I had a piercing. It was like one of those, you know, like not a normal piercing, one of the ones up here that we all have nowadays. And basically, a week or so after I was driving, I felt it and I was like, oh, I think the earring's broken. And so when I got home, I rang the people that had done it and I said, please, can you send me a replacement because it's broken? And they did send me a replacement earring. And basically, I was sat down looking at photos of, and I taken a selfie of when I just had it done, and I realized that the earring that was pierced, that they pierced my ear with, was not the same earring that was in there. So basically, some way somehow, this earring had changed into it. It was very similar, so I hadn't even noticed. Say it was like a flower instead of a star, like a tiny little earring. But I crapped my pants. And if I hadn't had the evidence there, here's the photo of the earring it was pierced with, and here's the one that's in there now, I would not have believed it. I would not, and I was actually like freaked out, because how does that happen? How does that physical thing shift in that way? And then I said, can we go back to white feathers and angel numbers, because this is just too much for me. It freaked me out. But I was at such a point of asking to know, to be shown, that I believe those things happen to me. I managed to just explain away the first two, but the third one I could not explain away, because I didn't have any other earrings that were that type. And how would it just couldn't have happened. And also I told a friend about this, and she's so caught up in her mind, she was just going through this whole list of ways to try and explain it. And my point is this, that I know I could work with someone and help them get pregnant when they thought it was impossible, or manifest romantic love, or a dream job that happens quite a lot, all these different things. And there are going to be people that just say, oh, well, that was a coincidence, or it was going to happen anyway. And then there are going to be some who believe. And someone said to me a while ago, how do you try and convince people? It's like, I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. If someone is ready to believe in this stuff, to allow it in, to up their faith levels, and that's what they want, then I am here to inspire and to give hope and to sort of say my bit. But I'm not trying to convince anybody, because unless and until someone's ready, they're not going to believe it anyway. Someone could literally grow another foot in front of them and they'd be like, oh, well, I don't know, they'd explain it away somehow. But yeah, so for me, miracles can mean all sorts of things, is the sort of short answer to your question after that very long answer.
Okay, but this is where the whole destiny versus creating your own reality type thing comes in. So in the spiritual circles, there's always the saying, you create your own reality. And I do believe that to an extent. Yeah. But then there's also everything is destined. It's so what is for you won't pass you. But if there's a destiny aspect to it as well, I'm kind of like in between the two, because there's part of me that doesn't want to believe that I have no creative control and it's all predestined. So even the decisions I'm going to make, where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do, it's all just predestined and I'm just living it out.
Can I just ask you a question? Does that feel loving to you? The notion that you were born and everything is predestined and you just have to follow along. Does that feel loving?
It does, if you look at it from the perspective of, I'm going to use certain words here that might trigger people, and it's just because that's the only word that's come to me.
Yeah.
You're sat in heaven.
Yeah.
Everything is good and great, but it's all just that frequency. You don't have the density to experience in a touch, feel, taste sort of way.
Yeah.
So it could be, it is predestined,
Yeah.
You're coming to have the experience.
Yeah.
I've had it put to me that way. That's kind of the way that the astrologers put it.
Yeah.
You're coming to live the experience.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I kind of feel
Does it feel fun?
okay.
Does it, but that feels to me like you're trying to convince yourself. It doesn't, I don't feel like you're lit up at the prospect of that.
No, because I'm not lit up, because I do also like, and maybe it's all of these things depending on the frequency, but I do like the idea of we're here as creators, and I cultivated whatever that relationship, that I always wanted this kind of love, and I've created that, or co-created it with this other person. So I like the idea of the creative aspects as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you've read Conversations with God from Neil Donald Walsh.
No.
He talks in that, I wrote a whole meditation on it. He talks about what he would call the voice of God is it's three things, but there's one main one I remember. He talks about your highest thought, and he's like, the highest thought, I think this is what he says, or similar, is the one that sparks joy. So for me, this is just my personal take on it. If it sparks joy in you to imagine that there's a framework laid out, but you get to decide that you're co-creating, I would say that's your higher self speaking to you. And if the thought of it's all mapped out and, well, it's kind of okay, and I can kind of get behind that, that doesn't spark joy, I would say that's probably not most likely to be the truth for you.
Okay. However, there's going to be the woman who really wanted the baby.
Yeah.
And all the medical stuff around it suggested that wasn't going to happen, but she still managed to manifest it.
Yeah.
But there might be another woman who also wants that badly, but can't manifest it.
Yeah.
So that then becomes was it destined for one of those women anyway and not the other one?
Yeah.
So we were talking off camera about there is some sort of predestiny in terms of your higher self or soul wanting to experience something.
Yeah.
So is it that, and I know we don't know all the answers, we're just exploring this.
Yeah.
Is it that actually when you decide that you want something in physical, it might be the reason why you want it that might be stopping you from getting it. So, and the point I'm trying to make is, from a soul perspective, you don't actually want that thing. From a 3D physical world perspective, you want it because that's the thing everybody wants. So therefore I should want it too.
I think there's a difference between what you're probably kind of in part at least alluding to here, Jacqui, is that we can have more surface level desires that aren't maybe the true desires of our heart, and then our deeper, truer desires that are aligned with our soul. And what I feel like I want to say is, for quite a few years I was in love with a specific person who I just felt was meant to be for me. Like, it was such a powerful knowing, and it's a really long story about a very challenging period of my life, and I couldn't understand, why can't I manifest this person, if it's what's meant to be, which is what I felt was meant to be. And I was so caught up in this mind trap about it. And what I've realized since then, because it really did trip me up, for such a long period of time, is that I think that some of us are, and this is something I've learned from human design, are meant to manifest more specifics, and some of us are meant to manifest in a more general way. And so I was trying to manifest a specific thing, and it was tripping me up, because that's not the best way for me to manifest. I'm meant to really sit back in and lean back into faith. You know, that's part of the reason I'm writing that book. It's a key aspect of my life. And your soul will guide you to do the best with what you've got where you are right now, and not try and run ahead. Your mind, your ego will try and get you to go for that one thing that you don't understand, and keep going round and round and round, and just block all the other things. And so the other thing I've learned is that we fall into these mind traps, and there are things that I still don't understand, and there are the basics that I know for sure. So when my mind wants to take me into, you know, one of the things that's often asked in the sort of law of attraction world is, where's the line between, can I manifest in someone else's life? And, you know, like, if I want this specific person, but they don't want to be with me, how does that work? And all of that stuff. And there are things that maybe we'll never understand from a human perspective, but it's like all the time you're trying to figure that out, you're blocking yourself, and you're not falling back on the basics. Like, my daughter this morning messaged, she's at her dad's, and said, I've got this science homework, I don't understand it, this, that, and the other. I said, when's it due? It's due Friday. I was like, right, get on with the stuff that you can do. When you come back to me tomorrow, we'll go through it together, because otherwise you're going to get frustrated and angry, and it's going to stop you doing any of the stuff you can do. And it's just like that. So all the while that we're trying to figure out and fathom what we don't yet understand, it stops us from having clarity relative to all the other stuff. And once you focus on what you do know for sure, you come back into that clarity, and then you start to have insights relative to the other things.
Yeah.
Fall back on what you know, fall back on what the mind isn't going to try and get all involved in. I just see it as these mind traps that we get distracted by. And I've been there so many times, which is why I know it so well, because I'm really like, get caught in my intellect. I'm a deep thinker, probably like you. And it just, I see it so clearly now. I think because of all the stuff I've done to work through the BS of the mind, I can just see it so clearly. It's like a different lens has been put in.
Yeah, my whole life I've been, yeah, but why? Yeah, but why? Yeah. But yeah, so there's I think that's where it gets tricky, working out what your intention is and where you're coming at something from. Mm-hmm. So are you just in the mind?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's difficult to tell whether you're just in the mind and you're convincing yourself this is going to happen for me and I'm going to get this, and then when it doesn't happen, you think there's something wrong with, I did something wrong to not manifest that thing or that person.
Yeah. I would always say the rule of thumb for me is, if you're feeling good, generally, like in alignment, as Abraham Hicks would say, and you're not all messed up relative to that thing, then it has to happen in divine timing. And if it hasn't happened, it's either because it's not yet divine timing, or your soul knows there's something better for you. And that's it. And instead of thinking, oh, why did it's come back to, am I feeling good? Am I in alignment? Have I got any tension relative to that thing? And keep working on that. And just knowing that the universe loves you, all of life loves you and wants for you what you want for you, and then some. And it's not trying to give you stuff, you know, like the saying, this or something better. It's not like, I remember I was in the nail salon a bunch of years ago, and this little girl came in and she was like, I want rainbow nails. I want like pink and purple and blue and yellow. And her mum was like, are you sure you don't want just pink? And she wanted rainbow, like she knew what she wanted. The mum didn't want her to have that. She wanted her to have all the same color. So she was trying to dissuade her away from what she wanted. The universe isn't like that. It's like, I know Jacqui wants these rainbow colored nails, but I also know that she likes glitter. So have you thought about it? But it's not because it's what some thing outside of you is determined is better for you, like the mum in the nail salon. It's you and you. Like, I think of it as little you and big you.
Yeah, your higher self. Yeah.
Yeah, your higher self, your soul, God, the universe, whatever you want to freaking call it, it's you and you. And that big you has been taking notes at every point, every moment, every juncture of your life. Jacqui likes this. Jacqui doesn't like that. Jacqui loved that. Jacqui wants this. Jacqui saw that and thought it was great. Jacqui didn't like that. And bringing it all together, and it's got access to the bigger picture. And so it could be, for example, that someone really wants a baby, and it hasn't happened in part because they're blocking themselves, but it's never that the ship has sailed and there's not another one in terms of the universe. It doesn't work that way. It's like, here's a ship, you missed that one, okay, well, here's another one, and you missed that one, okay, well, here's another one. But you might really want, for example, a baby, but you also really want, I don't know, to be part of a bigger community, and it ends up so that you don't have a baby one way, but you end up adopting, and then you get involved in this big, it's just all being brought together with such love. And actually, the thing that helped me so much with getting over the issue of being in love with that specific person, and we could do 10 podcasts on that because there's so much in it, but I don't know if you've seen this, and anyone watching, if they haven't seen it, go watch it because it is amazing. It's Mel Robbins' painting story. Have you ever seen her tell that story? It was like heaven sent for me, because long story short, she really, really, really wanted this painting in such a powerful way. And it cost a certain amount of money that she didn't have, and she wanted it for years. And it ended up with, the artist had painted of this painting a sister painting, which was almost the same, but not exactly the same. And she ended up with this sister painting. And when I heard this, it was like, yes, there is a sister painting for me. In other words, there is this miracle available, no matter how it appears to our minds, because we can only go so far with our minds. She couldn't have imagined that the artist had painted another painting. And I couldn't have imagined at the time that there was something different, something better for me versus that person that I was in love with. But there was, and there is. And I think for me, it's really leaning into cultivating and knowing that everything, the entire universe is ever conspiring in your favor. And of course, miracles are natural for that. Like, we are walking, breathing miracles. We don't think about that every day, do we? We just take it for granted. Oh, here I am, I've woken up again, I'm in this body, and like, how amazing it is to be alive. And so if we're not even going to think about ourselves as miracles, then why would we think of getting the baby, or manifesting the baby, or the £1,000 bonus, or the dream job? We're not going to think, we're just going to oh well, yeah, that's just a thing. Like, none of this is just a thing. And I think when you can lean into that, knowing that whatever you desire, some way, somehow is possible for you. It might just not look exactly like your human self has decided it. I think that's one of the discerning factors, probably, is letting go of, I think this is a Course in Miracles idea of, it's the picture and not, it's the content and not the frame.
Yeah.
It's the essence and not the exact details. She didn't have the exact painting, but she had something so just as good, like better, because it had been made for her by some miracle. And she found her way to it. And, anyone watching this that hasn't seen it, go watch it. It is mind-blowing.
What again?
It's Mel Robbins. And if you just put into YouTube, Mel Robbins, the painting story, I think. Okay. Yeah, maybe put the link if you can in the show notes, because it's just, for me, that just speaks to the grace and the glory and the majesty and the kindness and the love of the divine. We can't fathom that.
No. So how do we, okay, say you want something, I'm not going to say really badly, but
Bad.
but you do really want this thing, and in your heart of hearts you do feel this is my thing.
Yeah.
But there are things delaying, little obstacles coming.
Yeah.
Like, how do you keep the faith through that? Because then your mind starts saying, well, maybe these obstacles are coming up because you're not supposed to have that thing, even though it feels like it's really right.
Yeah.
And it is yours.
Yeah.
But then if that's the case, why are all these obstacles coming up?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's playing into the, how do you live in faith? Like, how do you just let go?
Yeah.
And if it's supposed to be mine, it's supposed to be mine,
Yeah.
and it will happen. But meanwhile, you've got to live in all of this uncertainty around it.
Yeah. I remember, and I've obviously been writing about this in Living in Faith. I say in it, I don't know where the sort of fulcrum tipped, or like something suddenly shifted, and I went from just, I could remember thinking, I get this as a cerebral concept, but I don't feel it in my body and my being, this faith. I really want to believe, but I don't fully. I remember being sat in I did the Alpha course and being sat there and people were talking about stuff, and I was like, oh, I really want to believe, but I just can't quite. And then at some point it shifted, and now I just live in it. And the I said this to someone. I did a live coaching session a little while ago with one of my lovely clients called Karina, and I said to her in it, your inner critic, fear, the mind, is never going to have a personality transplant. Right? It's never going to suddenly say to you, you go, Karina, you've got this. It's going to be amazing. Everything's lined up. All your ducks are in a row. It's going to work. That's never going to happen. Okay. And so the same, if I say now, I want my books to be New York Times best-selling books, my brain isn't going to go, of course, Sophie, your wish is my command. Like the divine says that, but not the mind. The mind is going to say, how's that even possible? Who do you think you are? That's a given. Okay, it's a given. So the doubt, the questioning, the just taking you down, all these distractions, that's going to happen. One of the things I love to say is fear speaks loudest when you're on the precipice of great change.
Yeah.
That's just going to be. So if I'm working with a client and they're like, my mind's saying this, I'm like, that's freaking awesome, because it means you're on that precipice. And the way I think of it, I did a meditation last month, I think, called Fly Not Fall. And I was like, your mind thinks you're on the edge of a cliff and you're about to tumble to your death. And so it is doing everything it can to stop you. Doubt, comparison, questions, whatever it might be, but your divinity knows that you have these divine wings and you're about to fly. And so what you have to do again and again is start telling that story. This is what I decide. This is what I declare. This is how it gets to be. Always with the caveat that, yes, you're co-creating with your higher self. But ultimately, if you feel it in your heart and it's that deep, true desire, like there's no part of me, you can't convince me on any second of any minute of any day that it's loving for the divine to place a desire in you and then say, you can't have it though. Like nowhere. That's not love. That makes no sense whatsoever. And so you just got to know it's par for the course that the mind's going to doubt. Exactly the same as if a tiger suddenly leapt out from behind you to try and eat you, Jacqui, your heart is going to start pumping, your legs are going to get super strong and you're going to be out of there. And I'll be like, oh, what's happened to the parka? That's going to happen, right? And so when the mind is designed to keep you safe, it's not designed to permit you to soar. That's what our spirit is for, and our soul and our higher self and our divinity. And so it's keep tapping into that, and there is going to be this kind of like argument, but the more you start to show yourself, I talk about this in my book. I think it's probably a bit like Abraham Hicks call it step 5 living, when you're in a crappy experience, but you refuse to kind of be disappointed by it. And when the guy that I was in love with, he really was hot and cold and all these different things, and there were points where I was like, we're going to be together, and they're not, and there was a point where I really thought, right, this is it now, I'm going to be with this man that God has destined for me. It meant so much, you know, because it was all to do with my belief in the divine and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden he just blocked me and then just dismissed me, and it hurt me so much. I felt like the divine had said, come here, come here, come here, you can have everything you want, and then laughed in my face on a human level.
Yeah.
But on a deeper level, I knew that was not truth. And so I refused to believe in the lies that my mind was telling me. And the more you do that, the more you strengthen that connection with that faith. There's a chapter in my book called the Lion's Den, and it speaks to this, where I didn't realize that I was googling, my boyfriend's called Daniel, and I was googling what his name meant, and it has a biblical meaning. And there's a story in the Bible I didn't know about, some dude called Daniel who got chucked in with the lions in a cave, and some king or whatever closed the cave off with a big old rock and went back the next morning, and Daniel had survived because the angels came and closed the lions' mouths. So really, that's what faith is all about, is being in that metaphorical lion's den, and refusing to believe. And we all know what placebo is. Like, someone takes a sugar pill and their cancer goes away. Like, that happens all the time. In a book I read, there was a guy that was they actually do fake surgeries.
Yes, I saw that there was a BBC One documentary about that.
Yeah.
Where they didn't tell them it was, they weren't going to do anything. They actually set up like it was, they went to a proper hospital.
Yeah.
They actually put them under, they made a decision. So that it looked like they'd actually gone, but they hadn't gone in and done anything.
Yeah.
And they also were blind afterwards, that their injury had
got better. And the guy that was doing this great genuine knee surgery, had to stop doing it, because although his results were really good, the placebo results were better than his. So this stuff happens, all the time. There's much research that we can look into related to this. So these cool things are already happening, but in order to up your faith level, you've got to make a decision that you're no longer. I wrote something on Instagram the other day. Let me see if I can find it, because it was so profound and it's not far away. Bear with me just a second. I actually included it in the book. So I was like, here you go. You might have seen it, Jacqui. And just like that, I realized the ugly thoughts were lies and stopped believing them. So in a moment, I was free. Just like that, I realized the ugly thoughts were lies and stopped believing them. So in a moment, I was free. And that, in many respects, I think just encapsulates all this stuff that we're talking about when it comes to faith.
Which has just reminded me that just as you have the placebo effect, you have the nocebo effect, which is the opposite, where when people are given a diagnosis, they get worse. And if they're told if they're given in this same documentary, I think they had given someone maybe sort of 3 months to live or something like that. And they did pass away, but not of the illness, just because they'd been told that's
casting a spell of death upon someone.
So that just made me think, this is what we're doing to ourselves all the time.
Noceboing ourselves.
Yeah.
It's impossible. Okay, so say at the moment I am enrolling people into Manifesting Miracles, which starts October 3rd, I think. So I don't know how long away that is, a couple of weeks, whatever. The day after I go to see Eckhart Tolle for the second time, which I'm so excited about. But anyway, if I opened it for enrollment and for the first 2 days no one signed up, okay, so I started saying, oh, no one's signing up. Oh my God. Yeah. How am I supposed to teach people about miracles? And I can't even manifest people, and start telling this story. Life we have free will, right? So life can't, or it's practically impossible. I wouldn't say impossible, but practically impossible, very difficult for me to then manifest that into my life, because I'm casting this spell. No one's signing up. I haven't had anyone sign up. It's really slow. No one's going to join. And of course, it is challenging to not tell that story, but you can do it. You can no longer nocebo yourself. And that's the work. That's the work. So this landed for me really powerfully recently. I've heard it said before, but it just really landed. It's like, you can't tell a story of it not working and expect it to work, whatever the reason.
Yeah. And
can't tell that story. So I would say, if I was selling something and it wasn't selling, I would say, no, it is selling. People are buying it right now. And the way that I would justify that in my mind is, I would say somebody could be looking at my Instagram story now and thinking about it and going to get their credit card. Somebody could be telling someone, so my mind doesn't freak out when I say it, but it's like, my stuff is selling. People love to buy my stuff. And know that you've got to tell it that way and get behind it some way, somehow.
Yeah.
In order to bring it about. And if you can't get on board with a specific, like Abraham Hicks would say, go more general. But you've got to tell the story the way you want it to be. Otherwise, like, all your stuff all the time is circling all around you. And most of the people I work with are, you know, older than their 30s, mostly women. Although having said that, I also have worked a lot with kids, but that's not the point. And so they've been around a minute, okay? And that means they've been asking for a minute. And that means their stuff is amassed, but they're not letting it in. And one of the reasons why, for me, I think it's so easy to help people is when they're ready. And I've got my magic and my belief and my faith and all of my expertise, like so much knowing. And I sort of do like this on them. Then things just begin to pour in, because all we're doing is we're stopping saying it's not coming, or where is it, which is the same as it's not coming. Because if you knew, like A Course in Miracles says, he who is certain of the outcome can afford to wait, and wait without anxiety. You're not going, where is it? Why is it not here yet? If you know it's a certain thing, you're just like, oh, it's coming. I'm just gonna chill out in the meantime. I'm just going to have a good time in the meantime, because I know it's on its way. That's the vibe.
Yeah, that's the work, as they
It's
say.
done.
And then what happens is you kind of really want something. You go through all the angst. You go through talking yourself into alignment, so to speak. You get that thing.
Yeah.
And then the very next thing that comes up that you want, you have to go through it all again, because your brain goes automatically back to, nah, you can't have that. You're too this, or you're too, oh, no, that's not good enough. No one's going to buy that. Or
yeah, it's
almost like you have to, like, how do you get into a rhythm, or can you get into a rhythm of it? Of
course you
living
can.
in that.
Yeah, I think it's really, it's drip feeding bit by bit, this knowing that life is good, and it's born of and based on just this most divine love, and that no one's trying to trick you. Like, I went on you might have seen on my social media, Jacqui, that I went on what for me was a dream trip recently to Los Angeles, and I was sitting in Beverly Hills outside this really gorgeous hotel, and what did my mind want to say to me? You shouldn't be here, you're just faking it, all that stuff. And I was like, you can F right off now. I was like, no way am I going to sit here on this dream trip that my soul guided me to, my intuition guided me to, and it's so good for me, and crap all over it. Like, and that's what the mind wants to do.
Yeah.
Just because it's trying to keep you safe, whatever. But I'm like, I'm not having this, because that's not the way that I believe the universe is set up. And I don't believe that this idea of, I heard it once said that the idea of heaven is that you're sat at this beautiful buffet and you can eat whatever you want, and the idea of hell is that you're sat at the same buffet but your spoon isn't long enough to reach. Yeah. And I just know what true love feels like, and I know that this entire universe is based off that, and it just doesn't feel loving to place a desire in someone's heart that is not meant to be destined for them. Doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so then if you allow that to run wild, you could be on this magnificent holiday that you really enjoy, but it's the whole experience is muted because the whole time you've got this voice going that
Yeah,
say,
it's crap.
well, you don't deserve this, you shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Learning to, like I said in that Instagram post, it's learning to not listen to that bullshit, pardon my French, but it's like, no, because otherwise you're just going to, no matter what you have, there is a person in my life who is like this, so just driven by stress and tension. No matter how much money you give that person, they will never feel abundant, because it's all this stuff going on that we all have. And as I kind of alluded to earlier, I've done a lot of things to help me see how, I just see so clearly how the mind works. Like during COVID, I just felt like I was sat up on the roof just observing all of the machinations and the craziness of the mind. And I can just see right through it. And I have the same streams of consciousness that come to me, the same thoughts. That's why I know it so intimately. And it's like, no, that's born of fear. That's not loving. In other words, there's a higher thought, there's a love-based thought, and that's the way that I choose to see. And it didn't feel in any way, shape, or form loving to be sat in that beautiful place and saying, well, you shouldn't be here. Or like when people, a girl I know does all these different not masterclasses. Oh gosh, why can't I think of the word? Everyone does them nowadays. Oh, come back to me, like a group coaching thing.
Yeah.
That's not the word. And she's there, so she's metaphorically sitting at the table, but she gets imposter syndrome. And so that's just another way of the mind stopping you, of fear creeping in. So it's like, well, no, I'm going to sit at this table and I'm going to tell myself a story. If I desire to be sat at a table, then I am meant to be at that table, because that's loving, isn't it? Not, I want it, but I can't have it, or I want it, but I'm just meant to see other people have it. That's not loving.
So even if you look at the world as it is today, or during that the last sort of 2-3 years, where there is all of this things that are not good going on all around you.
Yeah.
How do you stay in that space, apart from don't watch the news?
Yeah.
In that space of believing in the benevolence of the universe and everything, when all you can see is sort of like war over here and another outbreak of something over there, and just all these things going on, and everyone around you is in some level of PTSD or fear or
Again, I think for me, it's bringing it back to that sense that I've had since birth, that there's more to life than meets the eye. You know, Shakespeare said there's nothing either good or bad, but only thinking makes it so. I drive my kids nuts because they go, is it good? And I'm like, don't ask me that, because I'm never going to say a thing is good or bad, because it's a mind-made judgment. And I don't believe that what we would call good or bad exists. I think there's wanted and unwanted. But I don't use those terms. And I think, yeah, there's certain things that when you look right at them, you'd be like, how can there be this benevolence? How can there be this God or whatever? But that's when you're looking through a certain lens, which is that there isn't a bigger picture, a broader perspective that we don't have full access to, typically from the level of our mind. Like I said at the start, you know, we can't explain how women's cycles all come into sync. And it sounds like it's very small compared to bigger things like war and children being sick and stuff like that, but it is ultimately the same thing. We don't understand, we don't have full view on what's going on. And I always feel in any moment that I can be kind of pulled down into the fear, or lifted up into the love and the light. There's always these two distinct perspectives, and I get to choose, you get to choose, we all get to choose in any moment. You know, I have judgy thoughts, scary thoughts, so many crazy questioning thoughts, but I see them like almost like this, I don't know, this murky river that I'm not going to step into that. I'm just going to stay up here and choose to listen. But it's choosing. It is a choice again and again. And it does get easier, because once you've been in that lion's den moment once, twice, 3 times, and realized that the metaphorical angels did keep their mouths shut, it really starts to strengthen your level of faith. Like, you know, neural pathways grow through use. And muscles get built. It's that kind of thing. And I've put myself in those moments where I've had every reason to crap my pants and gone, I'm not gonna, and then come out of it and been kind of like had miracles happen to me, and then it gets easier.
So I don't want to we live in a planet of duality. So that I'm using the term good and bad, but there's light and dark. I'm going to say good and bad.
Yeah.
Negative, positive, that there's polarities, duality in everything,
Yeah.
even within us. And so I don't want to, because I think there's a danger in becoming unbalanced if you don't see the richness of the darker side of you as well, and what's in there, and how that fear, that ego voice, is there for a reason. And I know you've talked about it's the survival instinct.
Yeah. On a physical level. Yeah.
So if we completely ignore that side, we become unbalanced. So how do we utilize the darkness? And I don't mean darkness in a, you know, but how do we utilize that ego, fear-based kind of voice? There must be something in it that's of value.
Yeah. I think that I had a person in my life for quite a long time who was not a kind person. And then I realized this person was like my inner critic personified. And, you know, looking at it from a very, very narrow perspective, you'd be like, this just isn't good. He's causing you damage, this, that, and the other. But ultimately, he was the darkness to my light. And like any unwanted, dark, bad, whatever you want to call it, stuff, like I often call it the divine compost of the universe. You know, like we put manure into our gardens to help the flowers blossom and so on. Like he and all of those unwanted experiences that I've had, and I've had many of them, have just propelled me further, have just strengthened those divine wings, have you know, like Rumi said, the wound is where the light enters. It's that kind of vibe. It's just recognizing that it's not bad or wrong or anything gone wrong. It's just like, I can't remember this quote now, but it's something like it's the space between the notes that makes the music. Yeah. And again, from the mind perspective, we want the notes, we want to hear the sounds, but if it was just one solid sound, there would be no music. And yeah, once more, when you're caught up in the mind, you can't begin to contemplate this, because we want the stuff, we want the good, we want the wanted, we want the I don't know, the sunshine and not the clouds, but it's all makes sense some way, somehow. And again, you can just end up in a mind trap trying to figure it out. But I just believe there is divine purpose to it, and I wouldn't not kind of acknowledge or face those things. But the thing that I found, you know, people say feel it to heal it, which I agree with, but the challenge we have is because of how our brains operate as humans, the fact that they're like Velcro to the negative and Teflon to the positive, when you're feeling stuff, you can really get stuck in it. So I would say feel it to heal it, then get on with it, because you run the risk of feeling it to heal it and feeling it to, and that's not doing anyone any good. So it is, yes, maintaining that balance and not pushing against unwanted, not deeming it wrong, understanding that it all has a purpose. I don't think the divine wishes pain on you, but I think that it finds purpose in all of your pain. And that yeah, it all makes sense. Again, some way, somehow, that we can't fully grasp with our human minds. But like you can't really explain to someone what love is, can you? But you can feel it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't translate through words, and the essence of what's going on in this universe doesn't translate through the mind. It just can't. It's too much.
So there's that saying that I hear quite a bit these days, which is, it's all happening for you, not to you. Um, and that's hard to accept, embody, understand when you're going through a really hard time.
Yeah.
But usually once you get to the other side of it,
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily immediately. And I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
We expect things to be like over now, or to have what we want now, but
Yeah.
it's a process.
Yeah.
And it might not be until 6 months later,
Yeah.
or a year later, that you look back and you understand why you went through that experience.
Because you shifted your lens then. I remember this thing came to me. It was like, you can turn hindsight into foresight. And the way you do that is with faith. And so, yeah, we've all had those moments where the house that you really wanted to buy fell through, and it was your dream house and you were really gutted. And then a year later, a better house comes along and you go, I see it now. But there's no reason why you can't have it. I believe it in the moment. It might be challenging. A lot of people don't do it, aren't going to do it. That doesn't mean you can't do it. Doesn't mean you can't be in the lion's den believing that they're not going to eat you.
So the trick,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's the living in the uncertainty.
Yeah.
Without
Believing it.
Yeah. Without allowing it. It's like, how can you live in the state of uncertainty, in the situation of uncertainty, and everything's uncertain all the time, actually. It's just, it feels more uncertain at times than others.
Yeah.
And how can you be there but not be there in a state of anxiety and stress and wanting so bad, impatience, and all of those things? Because to us, 6 months is a long time. Like, what if that house is going to come through, but it's taking 6 months, and it means other things in your life are on hold because, well, I can't spend the money on that because I need to keep it just in case this house comes through. Or it's living in that space but not being consumed.
It's tethering yourself to something deeper. It's making a decision, and it's like, I remember Eckhart Tolle talking about this at the start of the pandemic, I think, where he said just that, when everything around you feels uncertain, that's a call to go to something deeper or higher. I always think it's funny that it could be either or. Because, and I think my advantage in life has been, because I've had so little support in the physical, and in fact, contrary to that, from a very young age, it's forced me to go to those depths to find that strength. I've had to. And so I appreciate that not everyone else has had an experience like that, because they've had more support and more guidance and more love in the physical. So I guess that's both my disadvantage and, of course, my advantage. And I can tell you,
what's that saying? A calm sea doesn't make a skilled sailor.
Okay. Yeah.
And maybe people who are going to teach certain things, like you, have to go through those experiences of being rudderless, kind of thing, or not having the support. How can you teach what you don't know, or what you...
Exactly. And I embody it, because my coach said to me recently, how are you so kind? And I was like, it's partly just who I am, and it's partly what I went through. It's both of those things. And I think it's the same with my level of faith. It was partly woven into the tapestry of my being since before birth, and partly the experiences I've had in life, that I can sit here and just say, like, I know no matter what you do to me, you can't take my kindness out of me. There's just no way on earth. And you also can't take my faith out of me, because it's been tried, you know, but it's like, no. And that doesn't mean I've never had moments. Yes, I have, but fundamentally, it's like I refuse to believe that everything isn't born of love. I just, no, you can't beat that out of me. You can't take that away from me. And I think that's what I'm here to impart, is those people who are similarly seeking, is to tell them you can do it. You can be in that metaphorical lion's den and not believe they're going to eat you, because I've done it and others have done it, and it's possible. And that's the only way to create beyond, you know, just the physical, to create those miracles, is to tether yourself to that higher, deeper, fuller knowing. And then you permit in beyond what the mind is able to conceive of.
It just reminded me when you said, I'm not going to let anyone take the kindness out of me. I remember things happening sort of like in the workspace, in that corporate political world, where I said a couple of times, that does it. I'm going to stop being so kind and I'm going to become a cold-hearted bitch. That's what I'm going to do. And I could never do it.
Yeah.
Because it's just not
you.
It's not who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I tried shouting back at a person that was shouting a lot. Just, I thought I'll try it because it might, and it was just like, I mean, it didn't work, and it just was weird.
Yeah. And it's kind of, you get burnt, and yeah, it doesn't change me either. Yeah. Even though there's part of me that kind of says, you're so silly, are you going to trust again, or are you going to give so much of your time and yourself again?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, yeah, I'm going to do it.
And I think you can become discerning and wise and smart. You know, I've learned that some people I will give my compassion, but from a distance.
Yeah.
To equally be loving towards them, but also loving towards myself, because if there's someone abusing me, then of course it's not loving for me to permit them into my space.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, I've made a decision to not let the quote unquote hard things harden me. And instead, I remember when I was going through my divorce, I had a mantra that I kept coming back to, which is, I will let this break me open. So instead of break me, it was break me open to more love, to more kindness, to more compassion. And again, that's the choice that we have. We can be in the midst of unwanted and believe that it's just happening to us and it's random, or we can still choose to believe some way, somehow, this is going to be used for my good and in my favor and for the betterment of me and all. And that's a choice, you know, that we each get to make or not.
And I think some of us we kind of go through life thinking we're going to get to a point where we're not going to have this these internal battles anymore. We're going to get to this point where we've arrived and we've got all the confidence. We don't have that fear voice anymore. We can manifest what we want like this and that, and it's just plain sailing from now on. And I realized, no, that's not life. Life is these constant, I'm going to call them opportunities for growth, these that contrast, if you like, that comes along. And actually the joyful part of life is getting to the sweet spot where you can ride waves, kind of thing.
You know, in the Bible, it's called the peace of God that surpasses understanding. And I was thinking about that this morning, because somebody was talking about just before your stuff manifests, you typically, if not always, get into this state of what I would think of as the same as the peace of God that surpasses understanding. Like, I remember when I really, really, really wanted to manifest a boyfriend, and I just got to this stage where I was like, I really want it. Like, you can't not want what you want, and I really want it. But I just let go of all the tension and the pressure, and I'm just at peace with it. And then it was like really soon after that, of course, I manifested that love. And it's, I think that making peace, you know, Eckhart Tolle says, one of my favorite quotes of all time, what you accept, you go beyond. And I literally remember when I heard him say that in a meditation, I was laying down and I sat up and was like, what the hell did he just say? What you accept, you go beyond. And that is just crazy and anathema to the mind and makes, again, no sense. But the mind doesn't understand the magic stuff, the miraculous stuff. It's like, when you make peace, you're not saying, I don't want this thing anymore. I didn't say I don't want the boyfriend anymore. I deeply, deeply desired to have true love in my life.
Yeah.
So, again, so powerfully. But I was like, I know it's going to happen in the right way, at the right time. I have faith, and I'm just going to make peace. Oh, and there's such potency and such power in that state of acceptance, that state of peace, that most of us just don't understand. That's where the juice is. That's where the magic is.
And that's a frequency thing.
Yeah.
So if we're in the energy of the fear and the resistance, that's a very dense.
Blocking.
Yeah.
Blocking. What I realized is this: you can boil it down to, do I have tension or do I have ease? Tension, blocking. Ease, allowing. Tension is, got to do it now. Tension is, I really want it. Tension is, where's it coming from? Tension is, how come they've got it and not me? Tension is, I'm trying really hard, I'm doing everything. Ease is, I want it and I'm still going to be at peace with what is. Ease is, I'd like it to be here now, but it isn't, and so I'm just going to make the best of things. I'll tell you quickly a story you might have seen on, again, this, Jacqui, but my boyfriend sells things. He's got an eBay store and he's got, I think, hundreds of these taps, and he'd sold 14 in 4 months. And so he's got a decent amount of money tied up in them. They weren't selling. And I said, let's chat about it. And I could see straight away he had tension, because it's thousands of pounds he wanted to sell them. So that's tension. In other words, that's a block. And also, he was telling a story. They're not, from the start, he said they're going to be a slow seller. No. So I helped him with the tension, and don't know why that sounds rude in my head, but it wasn't. I helped him with the tension, and I said, you've got to stop saying they're a slow seller. And I basically got him to reframe and start telling the story. These are a bargain. They're really well made. They're only £1 more than these other ones that are cheap imports. And I've lost count now, but and then the next day I got him to feel the feels of them flying off the shelves, I said, because our subconscious loves metaphor, right? And visuals. Yeah. And he sold 14 in 4 months. And then I think it was 7 days later, he'd sold 11. And then he sold a load of these other taps, and I'll check in with him because I don't know the numbers now. But he was blocking with the tension and with the story. Yeah. So it wasn't that life wasn't loving on him and trying to bring it to him, but he was blocking, not on purpose. No, it's not on purpose, but still it was him that needed to shift, not life.
Yeah. Okay. So, at the moment you're doing a course called Manifesting Miracles.
Manifesting Miracles.
Yes. Tell us about that.
It's actually the 7th time that I've taught it, and it's the first time I've taught it this year. It might be the last time I teach it live. I haven't decided yet. I'm going to record it, and I'll probably just use it as a course, I reckon, going forward. I just love this content. I love teaching it. I always say this, I can feel the energy of the group before it even comes about. And the word that keeps coming up for this round is epic. And I feel like, a bit like we've talked about, I'm the poster girl for being the underdog and then starting to win, of things being stacked against you, but you come through anyway. And I really know what it's like to be in that yearning, desperate energy for a long period of time. I remember people would say, oh, I've been waiting on this for this period of time. And I'd be like, are you kidding? For me, it's been years. Yeah. And so part of my magic is being able to help people who are in that situation. They need to be ready, because if they're not ready, obviously I can't help them. But if they're over it and they want to manifest something that feels probably impossible, then I think the biggest gift I bring them in a full stop, but particularly in Manifesting Miracles, is my belief, my knowing. and the energy stuff. So I do teaching. I teach sort of like the principles of law of attraction and manifestation and spirituality. I also kind of help with the conscious mind. We do subconscious work through the sort of meditative hypnosis stuff. And then I work on their energy. And it is a really potent container. We start, I think it's October the 3rd for 4 weeks. And I don't know when you're going to put this out, but if it goes out pre that, if anyone wants to find out more or join, then just they can get in contact with me.
I was going to ask about that, if it's still open to register and
I'll probably leave it open until we start, if not slightly after, depending on how it feels in the group.
Yeah.
But if people are catching this after the fact, then I will be at some point packaging it as a course and selling it for people to do kind of like self-study. But yeah, if they catch it before then and they're interested, and really, like I say, I think that's my thing, is helping people who are so ready, but there's those blocks, and that's my gift, is I can just look and go, I see it. And if they're ready to listen, like Daniel was in that instance, is a small example, but it works whether it's a small or big thing. Then that's when the magic and the miracles happen. And it just gives me such joy to bring that hope and that inspiration and that knowing to someone that's like, when's it going to be my turn? And it's like, yeah, it gets to be your turn. It's meant to be your turn. It is your turn. And like, here you go. Yeah, love it.
Okay, so I'm going to have to try and remember to, in the description, put if I get this out sooner, just to put where people can sign up for the course, your website, all that kind of stuff. And there's loads of other stuff that you've got, I think, that people can do remotely, like the anxiety stuff and
there's loads. Probably the best thing is they just, I don't know, head to my Instagram and check it out. I've got like a free meditation on YouTube. There's my really inexpensive membership with loads of meditations in there, and I do masterclasses. I've got a course called Reframe. There's a lot of content. I've been doing it for so long, but they might want to start just by doing the free meditation on YouTube, or going to my Instagram is where I mostly post things, and start there. And there's a lot of free and then inexpensive content for people to get started, and then things that cost a bit more for those that want to sort of go deeper.
The next level. Yeah. Excellent. And I can't wait for the book, because I think that is the route to everything. I love that title, Living in Faith, because I think that's what it's all about. And I'm all about, how do you lead yourself through all of this? How do you help yourself maintain that sweet spot of not allowing the ego to take over and the survival mode to take over and all of that kind of stuff, but you self-lead and navigate yourself through all of these challenges. So yeah, no longer listening to the lies, the thoughts that don't feel good. That's the key. Yeah That's the work, people. So yeah, thank you. That has been such a lovely conversation, and I like it because it was just free flowing. I didn't bother with any of the questions, and didn't need them. Loved it. Jacqui. Lovely conversation. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we close? No, I just want to leave with a final question that I love to teach people, is when you're confused about, is this my mind or my higher self, is ask the question, does this thought feel good to me? That really helps cut through all the BS. Does it feel good? In other words, does it feel loving? Does it feel kind? Does it feel soothing? And follow that. Keep following that. That's a really useful guide, I think. So if it doesn't feel good and soothing, and no, it's a horrible thought, what do you do? Let that one go and just allow the space for another one to come, and then you ask again, does this feel good? And as you know, like when you're polishing brass, and I've done this before, it's like it just keeps getting cleaner and cleaner, and you're like, where's all this stuff coming from? It's like that. As you just say, no thank you, not in a freaky outy way, but just like, no thank you, another one will come, and does that feel good? No thank you. And bit by bit, you'll start to just
feel lighter and brighter, and naturally the thoughts that come through will typically be from that higher place. Not always, but you'll generally have this trajectory of your consciousness rising to a high level, and then it's easier to see the crazy ones when they come out.
And I think this, I think the reminder is you've got to get into a practice of, you can't wait until you're in a thought sort of space and try to talk yourself down off the mountain from there, because the momentum is going too fast. You're too stuck in that dense energy. You've kind of got to try and practice this while even with smaller things. So that you're in the practice of turning those thoughts around and they're not sort of running over you, kind of thing.
100%. Does this thought feel good to me?
Excellent.
Thanks,
Okay,
Jacqui.
I'm going to stop the recording and then we can say our goodbyes off camera.
Perfect. Thanks everyone.
Thanks everybody, hope you enjoy.